So, morning, Jay.
Good morning, Marcus.
It's good to see you again after a while.
Yeah, same here, yes.
Yeah. So, Jay, I hear that SAP have announced their S4 HANA upgrades.
Yeah.
Do you want to just give me a bit of background as to what they've announced?
So there were two announcements that SAP has made. One was that they'll be extending the maintenance support for S4 HANA till 2040. And they'll be ceasing the support for the existing SAP Business Suite applications by 2027, which is essentially they are encouraging their customers to move from SAP legacy applications to SAP S4 HANA. Saying that, they have been providing all the support that is needed and the technical expertise to migrate from or move away from their existing legacy applications to SAP S4 HANA. But what we have observed is that the migration strategy or the transformation strategy is primarily SAP centric. The downstream applications, which are part of the whole ecosystem, they are in some cases not that supported, and that is where we are seeing our customers face some issues.
Great, thanks for that. That's really interesting. So, just picking up on that point, David and Chris, I know that you're both working on upgrade projects at the moment where we as clients, being the experts around IBM B2BI Sterling, have involvement with the SAP projects. And I know there's some issues that you've sort of come across and maybe gotchas that are worth our listeners and viewing public being aware of. So, Chris, do you want to go first and just to give me some background from your side?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that come to mind when you mention that is basically make sure that the third parties are involved at the outset of the project, because although they only make up a part of the project, but they could actually be a significant part of the problems towards the end of the project. So, for example, if you were to decide that you're going to use a different version of an IDOC for simplicity reasons early on, further down the project, that would affect your third parties like your EDI suppliers, because the mappings that are needed would need to be changed. So that would obviously come up in the middle of the project while you're doing UAT testing, but it's a problem that you could foresee right at the beginning. So it's just making sure that there's involvement early on.
Brilliant. That's good. That's good. So David, if I come over to you, you've obviously been involved in a couple of projects now in that space. I know when we've spoken, some of the issues around testing and that sort of space. Give me some experience that you've had in your area.
Well, just to reiterate really what Chris said, the main issues we've seen have been kind of versioning issues. So we've seen new releases of IDOCs. So, for example, a delivery 03 might move to a delivery 07 when people migrate to HANA, and the structure of those two documents is very different. So it has implications for both us as integrators and third parties, potentially, if you're sending IDOCs directly to your third party. Also, we're seeing kind of versioning issues lower down, segment versions changing, structure of segments changing, new elements being added, plus the usual sort of data issues that you'll experience with any migration project. But yes, a lot of this could be mitigated with a little bit of thought for your third parties earlier on in the planning stages of the project, like Chris says.
Yeah, as I said, so SAP have done a really good job of making sure the tools and strategies are available for upgrading HANA and doing that side of things. But I think, as we've sort of discussed, the experience from our side is it's the downstream applications, those applications that integrate into SAP, such as IBM Sterling, maybe warehouse management systems, transport management systems, order management systems. Customers need to think about those. So Chris and David, so take Chris first. What would be your advice in that space?
Yeah, exactly what you're saying. Sometimes those the fringe benefits are taken for granted almost by the main part of the project. So something as simple as your barcode readers, they just work, and you might just, if you consider it early on, things just go really smoothly and work. If you forget about them and leave them to the last minute, they can take 10 times longer to fix. Obviously, in our space, we're thinking about your supply chain and your order management, things like that. Quite often, when they're working and they're working well, you tend to forget about them and forget that they're even an issue. But if you start to lose orders because of something that you've overlooked early on, some of the cost benefits of doing the upgrade in the first place are lost very quickly. When you lose a few £1 million order by accident because you've not responded to it quick enough. And those can be the order of magnitude with some customers as to what some of these errors are, even though it seems like a single message going through the system that's lost.
Thank you for that. So, David, I know when we've been looking at not necessarily the HANA products for SAP, but maybe some of the other product sets, there can be some hidden gotchas in this. One famous one is where SAP was asking to open up 32,000 IP addresses to its customer base, and that was interesting, having to do a workaround for that. And I think we obviously certificate authorities are an interesting topic area. So would you have any sort of comments in that space?
Yeah, that's right, Marcus. I think, that's another thing that we've experienced with these with some of these migrations, particularly with SAP Ariba, their kind of middleware offering, their new middleware offering. Whereas traditionally in a middleware in the middleware realm, we're very open. So, we've been doing this for a long time, haven't we, Marcus? And so have a lot of other people in the middleware and EDI realm. But what I found with Ariba is that they're quite restrictive on what they'll accept and what they're expecting their third parties to provide. So they'll only accept certain formats of data, and they'll only accept certain, as you say, certificate authorities. They have a whitelist of certificate authorities, and if you're using SSL certificates which aren't provided by a CA on that whitelist, they won't accept them. And as you say, they expect third parties to open up their firewalls to an unprecedented amount of IP addresses. So there are some challenges there, yes, definitely, compared to working with the more traditional EDI VAN providers.
So turning back to Jay. So Jay, what would be the sort of bits of advice you'd be giving to customers in terms of sort of planning and SAP HANA upgrade and doing that?
Yes, so though SAP is providing the required technical expertise and the strategy and the tools and accelerators, as we had mentioned earlier, maybe it would be beneficial if they consider the third-party applications which are there in their whole ecosystem and plan it, as Chris said, plan it from the beginning, like take them into account from the initial stages when you're planning your strategy, and then roll out your transformation plan. Maybe that will help you avoid the costs in the future, like that we are seeing for a few of our customers right now, where they are facing issues with the downstream systems, as well as there were some careful planning is something that is required. We've also seen a few high scale failures, well documented failures of an SAP S4 HANA upgrade, wherein the whole supply chain sort of got disrupted and they had to roll back the upgrade. So maybe it's pivotal that they start off with taking the whole ecosystem into consideration and then roll out their transformation journey.
Yeah, I certainly think. I think from my side, I'd add in that customers should be trying to make sure their business processes have been fully analysed first of all before they start an upgrade for SAP. And the key thing is that ecosystem, and where we're not SAP specialists, we're the guys who are affected by the downstream applications. So our world is IBM Sterling, EDI, it's API management, it's all those sort of bits and pieces. And as Chris said earlier, simple things like your scanners that you might use in your warehouses can be affected by this upgrade, and it's that planning process. So first of all, choosing the right partner to go with is important, and obviously we'd recommend coming to Coliance and talking about our experience, making sure that you've got good sponsorship from your business, and making sure they understand as to why the upgrade's necessary and what it's bringing benefits is very important. They're aligned and they're keeping it there. As I said, the business processes from that side. And what we haven't talked about is testing. So I think David, just from that point of view, again, if you've got a few comments on that side.
Yeah, I mean, all of the issues that we've identified have come up through testing. It sounds surprising, but we weren't expecting. For example, when I said that the message version was going to be changing, we weren't expecting that. That came out of testing. So nobody had thought about it previously. It wasn't in the plan. It hadn't been shared with us or the third parties. All of these issues that we're describing on the projects that we've been working on so far have come through testing. So yeah, testing is absolutely imperative. Having a test plan with all your third parties.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. It's not just test with the Ariba, but it's the third parties and those downstream products and solutions that are affected is the key thing from that side.
Yeah, I think one of the things it's worth doing is figuring out what you've got control of and what you haven't got control of. When you are within the SAP team, you're pretty much in control of everything. Obviously, you're going to a new version, but you know what you can control and what you can't control. One of the things with dealing with third parties, it's not the third party as such that you can't control, because you can, but they can't influence your customers very easily. Those customers, like Dave was saying about SAP Ariba, I mean, the reason you have to open all those ports is because the customer told you have to open all those ports if you want to do business with us. So you have to make a decision. Do you stick with your security model of only opening, a handful of ports per customer, or do you go with the fact that you have to deal with that customer and you lose money if you don't deal with that customer? So some of these things, if you can't control them, you can influence them, but it takes time. So the earlier in the process that you can figure out these questions and get those questions answered and get those changes in progress, the sooner the better.
Yeah, or come to a partner who's already had to do that, and therefore can cover off those particular issues and with you very quickly. And look at that side.
The other thing you need to think about, Marcus, is customizations within SAP, because that's another thing that we've seen is either custom IDOC releases or custom segments, Z segments releases, either new ones being implemented as part of the HANA migration, or old ones which used to be received from ECC or R3 not existing anymore in HANA, and there was some mandatory data in those. So there are a lot of considerations, and all of them, or a lot of them, do actually affect your third parties.
That's useful. I think whether it's you guys or on a call the other day, I think there was an instance where there was a customer who had about 30,000 different customizations that they were having to deal with. So it was far from their standard SAP product. That said, I want to emphasize that the SAP have done a really, really good job providing tools to upgrade for the solution themselves. I think it's really when you start to move outside just the SAP ecosystem, that's where the issues may come up. So yeah, that's good. Jay, is there anything else you'd want to add at this point?
There's nothing that I can think of, but yeah, the primary thing, as was discussed right till now, is to understand your whole ecosystem,
Yeah.
and then plan it accordingly. And go on with the strategy by involving your partners and third-party applications as well.
Yeah.
And then roll it out.
Yeah.
That's what I'll suggest. Yeah.
It's brilliant. Great. Thanks. I think, guys, that's enough. We've gone through the sort of topics that we wanted to talk about. So I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to have this discussion with us. And as I'll just say, so you've met some great sort of Coliance technical guys talking on here. Come and talk to Coliance about how we can help you improve your SAP upgrade.